So you're struggling to make a graph in Google Sheets. Here's one more way to look at it. So you've got your data table with a title, you've got your headings, and you've got your information. First thing you want to do is select your data and highlight it. Insert chart. And this will bring up the chart editor. You want to make sure that you're choosing a scatter plot, not a pie graph, not a bar graph, scatter. Now, instead of clicking Insert, go to Customization. Your title of all graphs should be in the format of Y versus X of something. Now, on the Y-axis, we graph distance. On the X-axis, we're graphing time. So your title should be distance versus time of, and whatever this you're graphing, that's what you put in the title. Now this is distance and time, so it's probably a car trip. So I'll just call it distance versus time of a road trip. And this way we've got a title that makes sense. As we scroll down, it's good to try to make sure that your legend is inside. That'll make more sense in a bit. Your horizontal axis. Make sure the title of the axis includes what it is you're graphing and the units in parentheses. Switch to vertical, and again, make sure you've got for your title of your axis what you're graphing and the units. Your maximum and minimum values. Unless told otherwise, you should probably set the minimum to 0 and the maximum to be whatever you need. Now, if I want to use this graph to predict after 5 hours how far will I have traveled, I want to set my maximum to be a little bit more than 5. So I'm going to set it to 6. And this information is going to go well above the maximum of the y-axis. So I will set the y minimum at 0, and I'll set the y maximum maybe around 500. And I can see that now when I get to 5 hours or 4 hours, my graph will continue on the space provided. As we scroll down to the grid lines, right now it says 5 major grid lines on the y-axis. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are these major lines. If we want lines in between, we add minor grid lines. If I select 1, it'll put 1 line in between the majors. If I put 3, now it puts 3 in between. I'm going to select 4 so that every line, every one of these minor grid lines represents 20. So we got 200, 220, 240, 260, 280, then 300. I'm going to go back to the horizontal and adjust my grid lines as well so that I've got my majors at every 5, so 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, 5 hour. I'm going to put 1 minor grid line in between because my data was taken every half hour. The only thing that remains is your trend line. And since this looks like pretty linear data, I'm going to choose a linear trend line. And the label for my trend line, I'm going to use the equation of the line. So now I've got the equation y equals mx plus b, m being the slope, and I can now insert this graph into my file. This is too big. The space I want to put the graph in was a lot smaller, so I'll just grab the corner, shrink it down, and now the graph fits in the space that I want it to. I could stretch it out a little bit, make it fit a little bit better. If I make it a little bit wider, the whole equation should display. The meaning of the slope? Well, slope is the ratio of y to x, y divided by x. Distance divided by time, or miles divided by hours. In this case, the slope would be the average speed of this trip. If you need to go back in and re-edit this graph, clicking the little pencil button allows you to edit individual portions, make adjustments. If you want to get the major editor back, you can always go back to, with a right click, and do advanced edit, and that will reopen your customization menu. I hope this helps as you're putting graphs in your lab reports. If you have any questions, you know where to find me.